Hello, and welcome back to The Power of Three, a webinar series from the retail media experts at Threefold. I'm very excited to bring you the third and final episode in the series, where we'll delve into the in-store opportunity and examine how retailers can offer truly omnichannel marketing for brand advertisers. If you missed the first two episodes in the series, The Power of Three, Measurement and Data, and The Power of Three, Leveraging Technology for Retail Media Success, you can catch them both on demand on Threefold's resources hub, threefold.team/resources. I'm Amber Roberts, and I'm excited to guide you through this short presentation before we move into a discussion with some of the industry's brightest thought leaders. Let's start at the beginning. Retail media is not a new concept or even a category of advertising. It's been on its own journey of transformation since the 1990s and, perhaps even before that. At that time, mass marketing was still considered king of the castle. It was the most effective, the most sexy. Brands traditionally used a push model of advertising where they would broadcast their campaigns with the aim of reaching as much of the population as possible. With only a handful of channels at the time, TV was, the most preferred way to do this. By 1990, The Simpsons quickly became one of the top 20 most popular programs on US television. A commercial airing during this time reached 90% of the United States. Shopper marketing, or what was then known as just a promotion, was not really considered a marketing channel in its own right. Media consumption fragmented with the rise of digital platforms, social media, and streaming services. This meant that media was now being consumed in a very different way. As our markets grew and diversified, we realized the one-size-fits-all approach no longer worked. Consumers have unique preferences and behaviors, requiring tailored marketing efforts to truly connect and engage with them. Because all of these new advertising channels, markets became saturated and competition intensified. To stand out, brands needed to craft personalized, compelling messages that resonated with specific audience segments. The digital revolution brought us powerful data analytics tools, revealing deep insights into consumer behavior. This data-driven approach enables precise targeting and personalization, making campaigns more efficient and effective. Consumers now expect personalized experiences and communication from brands. Targeted marketing meets these expectations, delivering relevant content, offers, enhancing the customer satisfaction and loyalty. What all of this means is that today, the customer journey is no longer linear and it's messier than ever. We bounce across a growing plethora of physical touchpoints as we move through our mental funnel towards making a purchase. When executed in the right way, for example, using the right targeting and creative messaging, retail media can influence shoppers at all stages of their funnel, from consideration through to loyalty. Gone are the days of a simple linear path from awareness to purchase. Today, the shopper journey resembles a complex spider web, with consumers engaging across multiple touchpoints and channels. According to Salesforce's State of the Connected Customer report, 82% of consumers engage and use multiple channels to interact with brands and make purchases. The data suggests that the average customer will typically interact with brands multiple times, potentially ranging from 5 to 10 touchpoints or more before making a purchase. Consumers might discover a product on social media, research it on a website, see an ad on streaming services, and finally purchase in store or online. Each interaction influences their decision-making process, making the journey unique for every shopper. So what's the problem? There's a significant gap we need to consider. 80% of purchases still occur in physical stores, while many commerce media strategies are predominantly digital only. Online and mobile channels are prioritized while in-store interactions are overlooked. This creates a consumer journey where the digital experience is seamless, but the in-store experience feels disconnected. This gap can lead to missed opportunities and inconsistent experiences. To bridge this gap, we need to balance our efforts across both physical and digital channels to integrate in-store strategies and digital campaigns to drive engagement and ensure a cohesive experience. Embracing a balanced approach helps brands meet consumers where they are. Another critical issue that arises when we think about omnichannel marketing. Omnichannel strategies are not just about placing a campaign across different commerce media platforms. Imagine launching a campaign and simply broadcasting the same message across all channels, whether it's online, mobile, or in-store. This approach falls short because it doesn't account for its unique characteristics or needs of each touch point. Each touch point, be it a social media ad, an email, a website banner, or an in-store display, serves a very different purpose and interacts with the consumers differently. For instance, a social media campaign might focus on brand awareness and engagement, while in-store promotions need to drive immediate action and enhance the shopping experience. To truly harness the power of an omnichannel approach, campaigns must be tailored for each touch point. This means adjusting messaging and strategies based on where and how the consumers are engaging. By customizing campaigns to fit the unique aspects of each touch point, brands and retailers can create a more cohesive and effective omnichannel experience. This tailored approach ensures that a brand is not just present across multiple channels, but it actually connects with the intended audience in a meaningful and impactful way. Let's address another pressing challenge. While precision targeting is key, many consumers find it unnerving when they feel like they're being followed everywhere online. Picture a shopper who searches for a product online and then sees an ad for it constantly on social media, news sites, even their favorite apps. It can feel overwhelming and invasive. Getting the perfect targeting mix is now more of an art than a science. Balance is needed when delivering relevant content while respecting user privacy and avoiding the impression of being overly intrusive. Effective targeting requires thoughtful strategy. Instead of bombarding users with repetitive ads, aim to deliver valuable, timely content that genuinely enhances their experience. By focusing on a well-balanced targeting strategy, we respect user privacy while still engaging them effectively. As we navigate the challenges in omnichannel retail media marketing, it's crucial to explore emerging solutions that address these complexities. One promising solution is the rise of white label offerings. These are comprehensive RMN toolkits managed end-to-end by media experts. Think of it like outsourcing your retail media division to a trusted partner who handles everything from implementation to optimization. This allows retailers to remain retailers while offering the robust media agency style operations brands require. We're also seeing an increase in specialized tech partners offering support in niche areas, whether it's advanced analytics, personalized recommendations, or sophisticated ad targeting. These partners provide the expertise and tools needed to enhance specific aspects of an omnichannel strategy spanning offsite, online, and in-store. Awareness of omnichannel marketing is on the rise, as evidenced by reports from organizations like the IAB and insights from the Path to Purchase Institute. The importance of integrating digital strategies with in-store experiences is gaining more attention. Brands and retailers alike are recognizing that a seamless connection between online and physical stores is crucial for delivering a cohesive customer experience. As the industry increasingly values the role of physical stores in the omnichannel landscape, these solutions will help bridge the gap between digital and in-store experiences, driving better results and enhanced customer satisfaction. Let's take a closer look at a successful example of omnichannel retail media marketing from our partners at Boots, the leading health and beauty retailer in the UK. Threefold's experts operate Boots Media Group as an end-to-end white label solution for Boots, delivering high-performance connected marketing campaigns for brands that reach shoppers across their path to purchase. BMG is underpinned by Threefold's Plan Apps technology, which enables brands to log in and seamlessly plan, activate, and evaluate their omnichannel retail media campaigns. Global beauty brand Fenty teamed up with Boots Media Group to launch their foundation line with a clear vision: match the nation and find the next faces of Fenty Beauty. The campaign aimed to highlight Fenty's commitment to inclusivity by showcasing 50 shades of foundation designed to suit a diverse range of skin types. The primary ambition was to become a leading foundation brand at Boots, a goal that required balancing Fenty's signature edge with a broader appeal. Match the Nation sought to connect with a wide audience by emphasizing the brand's inclusivity. Find the Next Faces of Fenty Beauty aimed to engage potential new brand ambassadors and influencers, further extending the brand's reach. The campaign brief emphasized maintaining Fenty Beauty's unique, bold identity while ensuring the messaging resonated with a larger audience. The strategy involved leveraging both digital and in-store channels to create a cohesive and engaging experience for consumers. By focusing on inclusivity and leveraging a strong partnership with Boots, Fenty Beauty not only showcased their extensive shade range, but effectively positioned themselves as a top foundation brand. A key factor in the campaign's success was the collaboration between Boots Media Group and the Fenty team. Together, BMG and Fenty crafted a comprehensive plan to achieve several key objectives and effectively engage a diverse audience. The media objectives include inspire engagement and trial, raise awareness and encourage shade matching, drive traffic, and educate shoppers. Key performance indicators were awareness, engagement, reach, and conversion. By setting clear media objectives and KPIs, the Boots Media Group and Fenty team ensured a well-rounded approach to the campaign, targeting their customer where they'd be most inclined to engage. This strategic planning not only broadened Fenty's reach, but also enhanced the overall consumer experience, ultimately driving greater engagement and sales. The campaign achieved remarkable success by delivering on all KPIs and creating a truly omnichannel experience. The campaign's success is the testament to the power of a well-orchestrated omnichannel strategy. By integrating digital and physical touchpoints and leveraging data-driven precision, Boots and Fenty not only met their goals, but also set a new standard for omnichannel marketing. We expect more retailers globally will follow Boots' lead in activating truly omnichannel campaigns that reach shoppers across their path to purchase. Here's how. Retailers must embrace multi-channel integration. Omnichannel marketing requires a seamless approach across all touchpoints, online, mobile, and in-store. Coordinating efforts and maintaining consistent messaging across channels enhances customer experience and drives engagement. Leverage data for personalization. Utilize data analytics to gain insights into consumer behavior and preferences. This allows precise targeting and personalization, meeting customer expectations, and optimizing campaign effectiveness. And utilize white label commerce media solutions. Consider leveraging expert teams and white label commerce media services to streamline and enhance your omnichannel strategy. These comprehensive solutions provide expert management and integration across channels, allowing you to focus on strategy while ensuring a consistent and effective experience for brands and advertisers. Our presentation has covered a lot of ground, highlighting the evolution of retail media, the critical role of in-store, and the importance of an omnichannel approach. Now that we've set the stage for the revolution in retail media, it's time to deepen our understanding with the insights from our expert panelists at the forefront of this evolution and uncover how to truly supercharge your retail media efforts. First, let me introduce Amber Stoeber, Customer Marketing Manager at Molson Coors. Molson Coors is a global brewing company renowned for its diverse portfolio of beloved beer brands. Amber brings extensive experience in customer marketing, focusing on creating impactful retail media strategies that drive customer engagement both in-store and online. Her expertise in leveraging omnichannel opportunities will offer valuable insights into how brands can effectively navigate the complex path to purchase. Next, we have Arjun Chakravarti, Managing Partner at COGKNITION Analytics. COGKNITION Analytics is a leading firm specializing in data, analytics, and business strategy. Arjun's extensive background in data science and analytics and his deep understanding of customer behavior provide critical perspectives on how personalization can enhance retail media effectiveness. His insights will be particularly relevant when discussing retail media optimization across the shopper journey. And last but certainly not least, we welcome Georgia Martin, Partnership Director at Boots Media Group. Boots Media Group, part of the well-known Walgreens Boots Alliance and the UK's largest pharmacy chain, focuses on creating compelling media partnerships that connect brands with consumers through innovative retail media solutions. Georgia's role in fostering strategic partnerships and her insights into the integration of in-store and omnichannel experiences will be crucial as we explore how retailers turn into omnichannel media owners. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists. With that, let's dive right into our discussion. So in our presentation earlier, we highlighted that despite the digital revolution, 80% of purchases are, 80+% of purchases are really still taking place in store. So, to me, this kind of underscores the importance of, in-store retail media and engaging consumers at the point of sale. So, Amber, why don't we start with you today? So, what part does in-store retail media play in your, overarching retail media strategy?
Yeah, great question. For me, in-store support is really critical to connecting with shoppers. In the adult beverage category, specifically focused on beer, we know that there are endless options. Shoppers have a sea of choices that they can choose from. So we really need to stand out at the shelf and give them a reason to try our products.
Yeah, absolutely. That's in store is just so critical, especially with all of the laws and alcoholic beverage, the alcoholic beverage, category. There's so many things from a marketing perspective that just becomes so complex. So I'd
Yes,
imagine, I definitely imagine in store is a key component of that.
yes,
Um,
definitely.
so during the presentation, we discussed how the customer journey was, kind of no longer linear with shoppers. Shoppers interface and interact with multiple touch points along the journey. So Arjun, we're saying that the customer journey is no longer linear, but what does that really mean? And is there really, kind of that like average shopper anymore?
Yeah, no, thank you for it's a great question. And yeah, I would argue essentially that, we're marketers, right? And marketers always have brought to the table to organizations this idea that we need to be looking at people from a customer value perspective and from a segmentation customer customization perspective, and since that's the value that we bring to the table, what it's by extension what's also happening is this notion of evolving from a one-way to a multi-way conversation. It's a conversation that's mediated not only by you as a company but by influencers, existing users, and even others who ostensibly help that consumer get from A to B. And so our view on this is that we can build a foundational segmentation around demographics and attitudes and purchase behavior and start to build that much deeper behavioral picture. Like, in some instances, it's about understanding the, different ways that communities of people build identity or, learn, how to make the best use of a product or a service, or where they can be heard or supported versus where they go to see what's on edge, and what's coming next. And so, I think what we need is what we're trying to achieve is at a given point in time, how does this change, for example, and, how do people mature as they, start to learn with us in these environments? And so that's really where the opportunity is now. And, why we love sort of working on the data involved with that.
Yeah, I'm such a data junkie. I love looking at the data, but I think the one thing about the path to purchase no longer being linear is that it becomes kind of complex. But this is something that's like crucial for retailers to understand. Um, you know, Speaking of complexity, so Georgia, let's talk about retail media as, an advertising channel. So how do you feel retail media as an advertising channel compares to like, just traditional forms of advertising?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think as retail media develops and as we start to learn more and more about how it works, I think we see retail media as almost the kind of golden thread that links all of the different channels. So from offsite right through to in-store and your purchase channels. Uh, and the reason we see that is because actually the accessibility of the data and the data that allows us to really inform our marketing campaigns, which is obviously slightly different to the depth of data, slightly different to other channels that we're able to access. So it's how retail media is almost like the way that we can now link these different channels together rather than it being its own entity. It's a combination of it all.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think that there's, the unique advantages of retail media and the data that comes with it. I think that's what really sets it apart. Completely agree. So one of the challenges we highlighted in the presentation earlier is that integrating in-store and bringing in that digital media component to create cohesive omnichannel experiences. It can it can be challenging. So Amber, what challenges have you faced activating in-store retail media?
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on it earlier with the first question. For adult beverage specifically, you know, there's lots of legalities and restrictions that date all the way back to prohibition with tied house laws. So for us, it's really navigating the laws by state and what we can and can't do, and really, you know, getting creative with how we connect with that shopper. So one example I can think of in the state of Ohio, we can't include retailer ID on our pre-shop media campaigns. So we really have to rely heavily on that data and working with our media partners to make sure we're connecting with the right shopper behind the scenes. But in a state like Nevada, for example, we can include the retailer ID. So I can include the Smith's, which banner, which is a Kroger banner, in Nevada, to better connect with the shopper and drive online to have that shopper add the item to the cart. So it's really navigating those nuances state by state to make sure that we're connecting with the shopper and also being legally compliant.
My prior to Threefold, I was also in the alcoholic beverage space, and just the challenges that come with alc bev is there's always a fun hurdle to overcome. But you know, I think the way that you are, I excuse my lack of terminology, you know, like sophisticated term, like Frankensteining reports together to get to the to get to the, you know, the customer and make sure that you're targeting them correctly, I think is a brilliant idea. Like honestly, I don't know that I'd ever thought of, hey, let's apply the you know, the customer metrics from Nevada to ones in Ohio because we have a data hole here. I'm sure that, well, I know that that makes measurement also kind of complex as well, I'm sure.
It does, yes.
Speaking of measurement, you know, Amber, kind of what kind of data informs your in-store strategy and how do you evaluate it, you know, considering all these holes in your data and, you know, and how do you tell if an in-store media campaign was successful?
Yeah, I think the ROI question is one that's like on everyone's mind, and it seems each company, you know, measures it a little bit differently. And so for me, it's a matter of looking at that specific tactic and trying to define what success looks like for that tactic. So, for example, for an in-store piece like a shelf talk or, you know, something that's in the aisle, it's you know, it's connecting with the shopper at the shelf. We're going to look at things like a lift, a sales lift. You know, is that inspiring the shopper to add that, pick up that product and, you know, buy it that day? Something like media is a little bit more complex for the reasons we just kind of, you know, explained. And so, you know, we look at, you know, click-throughs, time the shopper is spending on the ad, online conversion, metrics like that. If we do something like a consumer sweepstakes, we might look at entries, how many consumers opt in to receive communications from us. So it's not a one size fits all answer. It's, for me, I kind of have to look at each tactic independently and say, you know, how are we measuring success for that specific plan?
For sure. And trying to decipher what the return on investment is. Like measurement in general is just so crucial for justifying investments and especially in in-store media. So
Yes, absolutely.
So Arjun, you know, earlier we kind of discussed the importance of understanding consumer behavior in this, you know, evolving retail landscape that we're in right now. So what factors are impacting consumers' purchasing decisions and how can retailers best, you know, meet those needs while in store?
Oh, yeah, you know, that's really what's on the brain right now for a lot of folks. I mean, for us, I mean, we're seeing, for instance, big changes in consumer purchase priorities since the pandemic, right? So you can imagine a world where you know, people were really given a lot of money, you know, from the government interventions, et cetera, and we're feeling a bit rich and wealthy. And as a result, the marketing really sort of reflected adjusting to people's preferences and aspirations, particularly as it related to living at home, being at home, filling the pantry, et cetera. And now we're evolving very quickly in the minds of many into a very different situation, right? So people are feeling constrained. Half of the economy sort of struggling with higher inflation, higher debt service levels, a lot of buy now, pay later kind of logic going into people's budgets now, which can be a bit worrisome. And then the other half actually doing quite well on a cash basis. But what's happening is that they're a little bit more spooked about job loss, right? So when you sort of take all those things together and you ask yourself, like, well, what does that really mean for what you do in store? I think what you do is you take a base case and then you start thinking, okay, how do we think creatively along this sort of macro base case that I set up? So for example, one might be is that in a world where people are now increasingly constrained, and that's where the mental logic is shifting in managing that, most consumer research sort of shows that people get cognitively overloaded when they're trying to save money. They get very stressed out and they care about splurging a lot, right? But they are very mindful of whether of those splurges actually sort of leading to some psychological balm or benefit, right? So those little indulgences really need to pay off. And so I think that's where, in-store really matters a lot, because half of consumers, particularly lower income, report splurging on food as a form of comfort. And so, what you don't want is a situation where you're discounting, but you're still feeling that there's post-purchase regret happening. Customers are feeling like they're not getting value. That seems to be an example of a real challenge right now that you can work with in-store communications to sort of mitigate and work around.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of retailers, especially in the food sector right now, really trying to articulate value, and ensuring that that's coming across. I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, and even at the higher levels of income, for instance, like Avocados from Mexico, for instance, is a company I like a lot and follow a great deal. And obviously avocados are like a very charismatic product, right? And geared a little bit more towards higher income consumers. But even these folks, if they're trying to save, you take avocados from Mexico takes sort of a learning and teaching approach and helping people understand what's next, sort of, hitting to their Epicurean interests a bit and showing what's possible. And so that's another way of getting at indulgence that's maybe from a different group to a group of different people who are nevertheless feeling uncertain. So that's kind of another approach that you can look at as well in store.
so when you're looking at, consumer analytics and behavior kind of in this way, what kind of data do you think brands need to kind of evaluate uh, behavior in store more effectively?
Well, I really liked Amber's answer to that from before, right? I mean, I think she's basically saying, hey, come in and be really self-possessed about the tactic that you're looking at and understand why you even have a notion for why you did that and why you think it would be successful. So she seems to have a really good theory about what she's doing, right, in each of those steps. So I think that's where you fundamentally start. And I completely agree with her that, there's this notion of return on advertising spend sort of being this black box. So I think you start with foundations like that. But I also think what you do, just sort of in addition, is getting past this point of, hey, let's look at 50 different kinds of metrics. You do want to bring together a rich ability to do segmentation on demographics, attitudes, behaviors, and then running dynamic experiments within that, within that framework. And I think that's where we're trying to get to. And the reason that I think that approach is so powerful, built on top of sort of a metrics-based approach, is to say, look, it builds on that base sort of self-possession, but that persona-based language that we use really allows us to communicate as marketers and maybe category managers what it is that we're doing to other stakeholders, in the organization in ways that are approachable. And I think a lot of times when we're collecting data, we lose sight of just what the communication value of it needs to be. And so that's, where I think this sort of building of quantitative personas that's a real opportunity in retail media network data is going to lead to some serious innovations.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Just like the deprecation of the cookie and like first party data, we're going to figure out like creative ways to use that. But I think what's interesting too, you kind of hit on one of our other topics from one of our previous webinars, is just the ability to kind of do something creative, do some A/B testing, because things are going to change all the time. And then layer in that data just to kind of help fine tune those retail strategies.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head on that one. So Georgia, let's shift a little bit. Let's shift the conversation for a sec to, the operational side of retail media. The brands that you work with, where does the retail media budget typically come from? Like I think internally we talk about there's, different pots of money that marketers or marketing teams or shopper marketing teams, depending on what the brand calls it. Is it their, is the trade fund? Is it a shopper fund, brand fund? Is it another source? Is the pot determined by brand? Is it unique?
I think what we've been seeing with Boots in the UK is historically a lot of the funding would come through shopper pots, and that was often when retail media was focused on almost sort of like the very much lower funnel channels, so things like coupons. And as we've moved up that funnel and as we've kind of explored more like a variety of channels because of the deprecation of the cookie and things like that, what's happened is actually we're finding that we're able to access different pots within brands, and it does vary by brand. But whereas it used to just be the shopper pots, actually now we're able to access the marketing pots, because instead of brands being able to use their cookies to do their own digital out of home advertising, actually they're now looking at retailers to give them that data to be able to target that advertising effectively. So instead of them doing their own brand marketing, they're therefore coming to the retailers to be able to do it with the retailer data. So you're seeing that convergence of different pots. And actually, I think one of the biggest challenges within retail media, especially if I'm like speaking to the brands that we work with, is often the internal structures within the brands, because they're set up a lot of the time to have a trade pot, a shopper pot, and a brand marketing pot still. And actually retail media is still quite grey, and it blurs across all of them. So I think one of the things that we probably have to address as an industry is the structure of those brands and how actually they can make it easier internally to be able to allow shifting within those pots more easily, to be able to therefore put the money where actually they're seeing the best return very quickly.
That would be the dream.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah. Understanding budget sources, I feel, is just like the foundational key to being able to strategically plan, at the beginning of everyone's year. So let's talk a little bit about the tactics. So what would you say brands are, most responsive to in Boots retail media toolkit? Are they more inclined to go offsite, onsite, in store? Like, what do you see?
It honestly really depends on the category that we're talking about. So the beauty of Boots is that actually we get to work with a huge variety of different brands that sit within very different categories. So everything from healthcare right up to premium beauty and fragrance. So with that obviously comes different priorities and different budgets. So if I'm a healthcare brand, actually often we're looking at kind of distress purchases that are actually made in store, or a meal deal, for example, again, that much higher propensity to purchase in store. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, I've got some brands like electrical beauty, and actually that is in percentage wise slightly higher online. So I think it really varies. I think one thing that we're really trying to kind of nurture and continue with is our innovation roadmap, and making sure actually there is constantly new media for brands to trial, and there actually is different parts of that sort of spectrum. We're able to get new channels all the time for them to trial and to see how that works for them. So I think the beauty of constantly bringing in new media as well is we're able to kind of encourage brands to try different types of advertising through retail media.
I love that. I love that you're pushing brands and retailers to be more innovative. Because I mean, realistically, different tactics are going to yield different results. And, it all really just depends on what the brand's objectives are.
Yeah, there's some quite surprising results in channels as well. So one that I always talk about is in-store radio. And I think quite a lot of brands have been adverse to it in the past. But actually the results we see across a multitude of categories is really impressive. So it's channels like that, just understanding actually how can they fit in as part of the sort of traditional mix that brands may be booking already.
Yeah, the in-store radio always, like, when I see the results for that, it always like blows my mind, just because I don't think that I personally realize, like, as a shopper, how influential the audio is while I'm shopping. Like, it could potentially, or it does, drive sales for certain categories depending on like what's being advertised, what music's playing, like what's the vibe in the store.
Yeah, exactly that. So it's interesting for all of us, for the brands, for us, for the retailer to really get to grips with that and understand actually what are the nuances between category, between brand, and between the channels, and how can we make it all work as hard as possible together.
Yeah. So as we look ahead, the presentation earlier highlighted how new technologies and digital capabilities are transforming the in-store experience. So Amber, as you are looking ahead, what does the future of in-store retail media look like for you, especially as retailers update their stores and, enable more, it could be digital capabilities, just retail capabilities in general. But what do you think that that's going to look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And we've kind of seen a lot of evolution really take place. Really, I think COVID jump started a lot more digital engagement with the shopper. We saw QR codes really take off. Prior to that, they were kind of dead, but now shoppers are engaging with QR codes now more than ever. Um, and I think for my customer, specifically Kroger, as long as the QR code is keeping the shopper within their ecosystem, they are generally supportive of that. Some kind of challenges I see in the future that many categories that Kroger will be facing is just how the in-store clean policies evolve. It seems like the pendulum swings both ways every couple years. And so for the products that I work on, mostly being beer and adult beverage, it's all about display and the incrementality that is a result of, shoppers buying that product off display. And, we love to dress up the displays with various point of sales, but now the customer is wanting more of a clean store policy to make the in-store environment more simplistic and, just focus on the great products that they have to sell. And so, in a couple years, that pendulum may swing back to, we want big retail, theater pieces. And so that's something that, is hard to predict. But so just being able to adapt and be flexible to those policies as they change. And then, digital is digital offers. I think Georgia kind of touched on this before. That's a huge lever for my customer is providing that reward to the shopper based on their purchase history. Kroger is all about driving loyalty, and so we want to reward shoppers with offers for products that they buy. And so getting smarter about how we connect those dots. And so it'll be interesting to see, what the landscape looks like the next couple years.
So I have to ask, like, if you had a favorite piece of in-store retail media, and this is the one that you like bank on every time, because it's going to give you those fantastic ROIs that you're looking for. Like, what would that ideal piece of retail media be?
Yeah, that's a tough question because it really depends on like the objective and what you're trying to do. If we are trying to drive awareness of a new product that's launching, that might be a little bit different than, maybe we have a product that velocities are on the lower side, so we need to kind of boost that. I would say when it comes to launching a new product at Kroger to connect with their shoppers in the in-store environment, kind of my tried and true tactic, and it's not very sexy, but it works. It's the 8x11, shelf talk. We've done many lift studies, and we see anywhere from an 8 to a 15% lift. And so, it's pretty basic, but it's a great way to kind of help that particular product jump off at the shelf. And so that would just be for like a new item. And so if it's kind of velocity driving, if things need a boost, we might do sampling, or we might do a digital campaign that's a pre-shop media program that drives to an offer to try to spur trial, try to get that shopper to try that product and buy that product again. So I know that's not, tied up in a bow with, one answer, but it really depends. But I'd say those are some of the kind of the tried and true tactics that I would lead into.
For sure. And you know what? I think you bring up a very good point. Like, it really does depend on what's your objective. Like, you're going to implement something different depending on like what it is that you're trying to achieve at the end of the day. I think I love your example of like the 8x11. Like, it's tried and true. It's very simplistic.
Mhm.
But it just goes to show like how powerful, just having literally anything at the shelf, just having retail media at the shelf at the time where the customer is making that purchasing decision, like it's going to be very influential to your point and bring you those fantastic ROIs. And it doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be super sexy. It's literally just like grabbing their attention for a second. It can be very simplistic and incredibly effective.
Yep. Absolutely.
Awesome. So let's turn to Arjun. So Arjun, in our discussion, we kind of emphasized the ongoing importance of physical store, of just the physical store in general in retail strategies. So how do you see the store involved in retailers and brands, just kind of like promotional strategies in the future?
Oh, I think going back to sort of, Georgia's earlier point about omnichannel connectivity and the ability to bring different pieces in, I think what it reflects is just post-pandemic, what we thought we'd get to some big shift in e-commerce, as you mentioned earlier, but we saw a pretty big swing back and towards the physical store. And I think that happens for a reason. And I think the learning here is that people are looking for the same person is looking for a different thing at a different time, right? So to me, the difference between e-commerce and physical really comes down to this notion of oftentimes searching versus browsing, right? So a lot of times you might find, just not to overly generalize, but that the e-commerce channel is really about search. You're using your mental model for what you think you want based on your current experience and needs. And so we need this channel from a convenience standpoint, but I don't know about you, but I often find that I'm put in a rut in that situation, right? And I think during the pandemic, I found myself in a rut, just like my Spotify list is, right? It's like, while there's plenty of digital channels that help us get out of these ruts, sometimes these algorithmic worlds are overly reinforcing. And, I've got a little bit too much Taylor and Travis in my feed right now, and I need the physical world to help me break out of that. So for me, the physical retail environment is really about browsing. Kind of like an event or a trade show kind of helps me break out of that and, fully opening up to new ideas. So I think consumers are in a completely different kind of evaluative mode when they're in the store. And in a world where retailers are purveyors of trust and, being, seen as great curators, that's really where there's a great opportunity. And I think this can be very important when a buyer is thinking expansively or even trying to solve a very, hard problem of making their budget work. I personally find my experience is similar to Amber's, that there's just a lot of situations in store where we have more levers at play that speak to those underlying, psychological needs.
You and I must be stuck in the same like online algorithm because I too have a ton of Taylor and Travis in my
Yeah,
feed.
whether I like it or not, it's just way.
It's just there. But I love your point though, but not to digress. I'll bring us back here.
Yeah.
The role of the store, to your point, it's just evolving, like it's fitting a different need than it did, pre-pandemic.
Mhm.
I think the store's role, it was very, I don't know, I guess the best way for me to describe it is like industrial. Like it served a purpose and it was just that purpose. But now post-pandemic, I feel like stores are becoming, to your point, a place where people they're connecting, they're expecting something a little bit more experiential because we've been stuck at home or we've been stuck in these algorithms. And, sometimes the store is a great place just to see another human being.
Yeah, I mean, we actually learned that a lot in our events analytics business. Why do people still show up to events and trade shows? And, it's a question for some in a world where, the world's digitally mediated. But, what we often find is it's no different than like, imagine you're trying to write a paper in college and you're just looking up all these sources online. Well, it's whatever's in your brain that's governing what you think you want. But sometimes you want that librarian's Dewey Decimal System sort of approach or organization of books to be like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize any of these concepts are related, or I could put these things together in a different way. And turns out everyday, sort of shopping and exploratory experiences work in very much the same way. And so real major opportunities in physical space from our perspective.
So, just kind of continuing on with this, like, hey, stores are evolving, they have to be something different. I'd imagine that retailers are kind of struggling to keep up with changing consumer behavior. So, what would you recommend to retailers and how to like overcome these obstacles and challenges?
Oh gosh, so for me, I feel like the other two experts on the panel are the ones I would love to tee them up actually, honestly, because I think the two of them have such a deep expertise in this area. But from my perspective, I would basically say, look, to get back to this notion of it depends on the situation and what your objective is. For me, what we're noticing is that there are lots of opportunities to really get your data straight in ways that, that's what ostensibly retail media networks are doing, but there is a lot of variation there. Not everybody's doing, able to run the Amazon playbook. And so there is still a lot of heavy work to be done in getting your CRM together, making sure it's privacy compliant, making sure the regulatory elements are hit, that it's getting to the kinds of levels of measurement that that suppliers want. And I think it does need to start there because, but you can start simply, right? Just with that sort of persona-based, data-driven, persona-based approach, but it'll govern sort of, what's the right mix of this multitude of options that you have. I fall into Amber's view that simplicity often reigns when you really are very, very self-possessed about what the underlying psychology that you're designing to is. And in this mode, it's budget constraints. 6 months ago, it was more expansive. A year ago, it was, everything that I can do to fill up my house, right? And so, if you have that higher context, I think you're able to really dial that into the kind of stuff that can get optimized on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, starting with data, I feel like is the baseline,
Yeah.
data.
And it's hard to do, admittedly.
It is, yeah, especially I think there's probably two extremes on the data spectrum. Like you just have copious amounts of data and you don't know how to organize it or make sense
Yeah.
of it, or you like have nothing. So
Yeah.
you're just like grappling for data.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. And these are major capital investments, which is why I always say, like, when you make data investments and they have to be compliant, make sure that you're focusing on the conversation you're trying to have in your organization as sort of the guiding path, because it's easy to sort of look at every AI opportunity and say, let's do that. But a lot of fail rate there, right? In terms of adopting technology, getting it to work. And I like the approach that the others have mentioned on this panel around being mindful and thoughtful about objectives. And I think that it applies to investments as well in the data space.
yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
So Georgia, I feel like Arjun kind of like teed you up as as an expert. So we've highlighted some of the key tactics and operational strategies, inside a retailer. So let's kind of discuss the overall impact. So what are your biggest challenges that you're facing, in retail media today? And it can be in store or not.
Mm.
What's your biggest challenge?
Yeah, I think Arjun actually just touched on it then. So at Boots we have a lot of data. We've got a lot of data through the Boots Advantage card, which it's amazing. But what we are sort of battling with and what we need to really focus on is actually making that data really accessible in the best way for everybody, whilst also really thinking about actually the compliance of that data and making sure that we're protecting that data, because ultimately we are a health and beauty retailer and we have a responsibility to make sure we're using that data in the right way. So I'd say it's quite a complicated part, and I think it's something that we have to navigate really carefully as we move forward. I'd say the other thing is actually from more of an in-store perspective. There's obviously opportunity there. We've launched hundreds and hundreds of digital screens in Boots recently, and the appetite is there. The appetite is there for more than what we can deliver. But actually, with that comes capex. With that comes a lot of, the delivery of the screens, the implementation of the screens, the setting up of the screens. So actually, from an operational perspective, it is again really quite complicated. And being able to scale at the pace that we need to is obviously something that retailers really need to consider and weigh up, because it's like it's the opportunity value of it, isn't it? And how fast that we can move to make sure that we're capitalizing on it as much as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always, it's a great spot to be in, especially if the appetite's there. You just need to get that investment and implement it in store sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Georgia, to wrap up, I'm going to ask you the $1,000,000 question. What does the future of retail media look like to you?
That is a good question. The future of retail media, I think it's really exciting. I think there's lots of opportunity. I think there'll be more consolidation within retail media, especially within the UK. We're seeing quite a lot of emerging companies at the moment, and I think the reality is actually when time we'll see some of those start consolidating. I think we'll see in-store playing a much bigger part of retail media, which I think is definitely the right thing given the amount of sales that are through in store. I think the digitization of the store will be absolutely key to that, and something that I know that a lot of retail media networks in the UK are currently focusing on. And then ultimately just making sure that data continues to be at the heart of retail media. It is probably what sets retail media apart, the ability to do closed loop measurement, and actually how do we continue that and how do we make it more accessible to our brands and really make sure that it is the foundation of all the plans that we're building. So I think that, very exciting.
Yeah, thank you. I love hearing your vision for the future of retail media. It sounds very, very proactive and optimistic. So thank you, Amber, Arjun, and Georgia for sharing your valuable insights and experiences with us today. We really, really appreciate you being on our webinar. Your perspectives on just, the evolving landscape of retail media and how far we still have to go, and the critical role of, in-store and what that plays and the opportunities there and the omnichannel strategies that you guys have seen as best in class. It's been incredibly enlightening. So just to recap, we discussed on this webinar how retail media has undergone a digital revolution, transforming how brands and retailers engage with consumers. And despite the growth of e-commerce, 80% of purchases are still happening in store, emphasizing the need for, kind of a more balanced omnichannel approach. As we move forward, to me, it's clear that retail media will continue to evolve, driven by, tech advancements and just the changing consumer expectations. So brands and retailers really must prioritize a unified strategy that leverages the best of, digital and in store, supported by the robust data and analytics behind it. So we encourage you to take the insights shared today and apply them to your own strategies. So consider how you can innovate in your in-store offerings, integrate your omnichannel efforts more seamlessly, and use data to drive better decision making. So thank you again to our panelists for their time and expertise, and thank you to all of our attendees for joining us and participating in this discussion. This is our last webinar in the series, so we want to remind you that all of the sessions will be available for on-demand viewing on the Threefold Resources Hub. Be sure to revisit these discussions and share them with your colleagues to continue exploring the future of retail media. Please reach out if you have any questions or need any additional insights from either myself or any of the panelists. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of retail media and maximize your opportunities in the landscape. So stay tuned for more webinars and resources from Threefold as we continue to explore the future of retail media together. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.